Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Turn this off. You know, I was thinking earlier when someone made an announcement. I've been to a lot of bars in LA when guys would do that, and it would be. I was thinking earlier, though, when we were asked to turn off our mechanisms, that a long time ago it would have been so great to have one of these, because I recall the number of hours I would stand at payphones waiting for the connection to call. And with these, you can leave little text messages. It's good shit. Come on over. You know? I get my eyes out and my notes, although I don't, luckily. All right, boy, really, should we just go out in the parking lot and sit on the ground to do this? It's really, yeah, I'm going to. I decided it's not going to last long. Where the hell is the book? Oh, here it is. Luckily, I don't have to take a lot of notes. I mean, for most of it, I remember. And the stuff that I don't, my wife has reminded me of. Okay, that's it. This is real different too, because in the old days I'd have started with the pants and not the coat. You know? Okay. Wow, this is great. You guys look great. Isn't it amazing? Look at this. This is incredible. Wow. All right. Luckily, like I said, I don't have to remember a lot of stuff, so I'll just tell you what happened, what it was like, what it's like now. It's pretty simple, isn't it? A lot of Al-Anons in the room, too. Is that what I hear? That's great. I heard a great definition of an Al-Anon once. I actually described my wife as this a long time ago. She's much better now, but that a true Al-Anon is the kind of person that, if in a plane and it was going down to crash, right before it hit the ground, that someone else's life would flash before their eyes. It's really good to be here. I just drove here from my home in Idaho. Got in late last night. Beautiful drive. It's amazing to think that we can do this. I'm just always amazed, you know. I'm constantly impressed with my ability to be somewhat present for my life these days. You know, I'm lucky in that, I guess lucky, in that I've been sober for a while now. Hi. You fanning yourself or waving? Not that time is any, you know, there's the old saying also that money is a lousy way to keep score. Well, I think probably in this program time isn't the best way to keep score either, but it at least works as some sort of benchmark that I've had both an incredible amount of drinking experience and actually 2 years ago surpassed my drinking time with sober time, which is interesting. A line I used to use a lot, I sort of retired it, but it seems appropriate after that applause, that I remember being on the Today Show once with Brian Gumbel, and I've been fairly public about my sobriety, although I have never talked about Alcoholics Anonymous on a public platform. I guess because of some of the characters that I've done, and might be some old-timers who disagree with that, but it's the truth. But I remember Brian Gumbel congratulating me on being sober, and I don't remember who told me this. It could have been, might have been Clancy, actually, who said this to me years and years ago, that congratulating a drunk for not drinking is like giving a cowboy a trophy for not riding his horse when he has hemorrhoids. You know? Seemed appropriate to me. How much time? But considering the temperature here, I would think, you know, I drank, I got sober, I'm happy. Good night. Okay. Let's get, let me just tell you a little bit about myself so that you know I do belong here. And I'm not just a ringer that Richard happened to see walking down the streets and decide to have me come in and promote some exercise machine or some sort of like bourbon-only diet that's the rage now. You know, in the 18 years that I've been sober, I'm again, don't mean to be sentimental here, but I'm always just absolutely amazed that the possibility of this room being filled with people who are taking advantage of a way of life that has eluded millions upon millions upon millions of people. And I'm not a doomsdayer in any way, but, you know, I'm a member of several groups online as well. It's just a nice way to check in with people around the country and around the world, actually. And I always sign my letters, "Keep coming back or die a miserable death." And for me, that's the absolute fact of life. And you know, when I look at the number of faces here, I mean, there must be over 1,000 people here tonight. The reality is that many of us will die miserable deaths. There's no guarantees. When we look at the percentage of us who actually stay sober for any length of time, have some sort of success. Don't take the child out. It's all right. I've been heckled by much meaner people than her. I just got a review, actually, and the critic said the only thing worse than watching a 10-hour miniseries is having to watch John L. for 10 hours. It's all right. I sent him a snake. Or as the great actor once said to a bad critic who gave him a very bad review, the actor wrote him a letter and said, "I'm sitting on the toilet with your review in front of me. It shall soon be behind me." Oh yeah, I'm a drunk. Okay, good. Before I forget, I want to thank Richard for asking me here tonight also, and everybody else connected with this amazing organization. There's getting a lot of knocks in the world too. One of the things that I've investigated over the years, when I got sober, there wasn't a whole lot of publicity about sobriety. Sobriety wasn't as big a business in the early 80s as it seems to be today. I think Betty Ford was still deciding what kind of martini she wanted that evening before. And AA is getting a lot of ridicule in the world today, and I don't quite understand it. I guess it's people who couldn't get it decide to start their own splinter groups. But I think that's how Martin Luther started. He was pissed off at the Pope, so you never know. Something good could happen. But I digress. Let me just start at the beginning real quickly to let you know about me and my life prior to getting sober a little bit. Biographical sketch of a budding alcoholic. I was born in New Orleans, Louisiana, of a very wonderfully alcoholic family. I didn't know my father. He left when I was a year old, and he was a drunk from all indications. He died when I was in my late 20s. I never met him except once when I was 7 years old. He came and picked me up for a weekend for some reason. I don't even know why. But all I do remember is that he went to the racetrack and left me in the car with the dog. So I didn't know him at all. But his name was John L. as well. And he quickly married someone else and had 3 more children pumped out of her and named the first one John L. So there's another John L., as a matter of fact, listed in the phone book in Louisiana. He must get some very strange calls. And I can't but imagine he hates me. From the earliest memories that I have, I remember thinking that I didn't belong where I was. My mother was very devout, worked hard, loved me incredibly, I'm sure. We moved in with my grandparents when I was a year old. I'm sure my grandfather wasn't really thrilled about that. But he was a hard worker as well. But it was a very drinking family. New Orleans, French, Irish, Catholic, my God. One of my uncles used to say that he was a member of the CIA, Catholic Irish alcoholic. And in those days, when relatives would keel over at the table, they never died of drinking. They died of a weak heart or a bad case of falling down the stairs. I was an only child, spent a lot of time alone, which is a great place for a budding alcoholic to be, because what you're left with is your mind, which is broken from the moment you're born. Very Catholic, deeply into that kind of dark, macabre, sadistic Catholicism prior to Vatican II. When eating a hot dog on Friday would condemn you to eternal damnation. And an ongoing procession of sadistic lesbian nuns whose only pleasure in life was just beating the ever-loving crap out of little Catholic boys. So drinking was part of the fabric of my life from birth. There was always enormous quantities of booze around the house. People drunk constantly, but many of them very comfortable, very able to take care of their lives, and supported by an enormous industry of enablers like Budweiser and Michelob. New Orleans is the only place in the world where the signs on the bars say happy hour any waking moment. But I grew up, as my consciousness reached out to the world, I became more and more and more frightened of life. And I would hide, you know. And when I was a kid, I would hide under the house, or I'd hide under the church. I actually dug out a little place where I would hide under the church, right below the altar. And also because of the kind of religion I had as a child, I was deathly afraid of any form of religion and or spirituality, because it was all based in this sadistic kind of, you're never going to accomplish anything, there's no way you're going to be ever good enough, you were born a piece of crap, and unless you devote yourself to us and give us all your money, you're going to wind up that way. So as a child, I hid a lot. I went to Catholic schools. By the time I was a teenager, I had, I think, retreated so far into this world that I had created for myself that I didn't even have a clue as to who I might really be. In the 60s, thank God for the 60s, as my pal Robin Williams says, if you remember the 60s, you weren't there. And I was there. You know, here's a great example. I've told this story, but to me, it's just absolutely illustrative of the kind of lengths that I, as a fledgling alcoholic, would go to in order not to be honest with you, to be so afraid of what I had done, with such guilt feelings, that the fear of being thrown away. Now, you know, I've sat on a lot of Jungian couches in my life, and I've read enough about psychology to know that if Dad had stayed, it might have been different. Who knows? But, small story. I showed up at school one day, I was 10 years old, and I realized that in my book satchel I did not have my catechism book. And I had something to do in it that day, and I knew that, I don't even know who, Sister Mary Rhino, or whatever her name was. Would absolutely destroy me for not having this book. So I went out onto the playground of the school, St. Mary of the Angels, and told all my little friends, I'll be right back. I have to go to the convent for something, which was directly across the street. I was also a musician from a very early age, and that's where I used to take my lessons. So I walked across the street to the convent and then walked around the corner of the convent and just kept going. Walked all day long. Afraid, so afraid of what would happen to me. And as the day progressed, I realized, well, you know what? They're going to find me missing, first of all. I'm going to call my mother, who worked downtown New Orleans at a clothing store. And I was screwed. There was no, unless I showed up dead, I was going to be gone. So about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, when I knew school was ending, I started walking back toward the school, having no place to go at 10 years old, no money in my pocket, having no idea what to do. I spent the day at the river, I think, by the French Quarter. And as I walked toward school, a plan was hatching. So I ripped my shirt, my little Catholic t-shirt, and I found some rocks and kind of messed up my hands, really just scuffed them up a little bit. And then about a block from the church, started limping. And as I'm approaching the school, this sea of black habits come floating toward me. Like that movie Bats, you know, And obviously, oh my God, what happened? What happened? I was kidnapped, sister. I was walking across to the convent, and this big man grabbed me, threw me in his truck, and took off with me. I luckily escaped. They bought it. My mother came, oh my God, my baby. Took me home. My grandfather was, oh my God, what happened? Everything's cool. Put me to bed. Honey, here, have some soup, have some crawfish, go to bed. The next morning when the police showed up, we understand you were kidnapped, man? All right, could you give us a description of him? Well, how far do you go with this? I'm in pretty deep. No, you see, I was afraid because I had lost my religion book. That wouldn't wash. Well, he was about 6 feet tall. Had black hair, really black hair. Big coat. Okay, fine. They leave. Got away with that. Until they caught him. Again, the question, how far do you go with this? At that point, some just spark of Jimmy the Cricket came into my head. And I thought, I may have not really told the entire truth about this, but there was that moment when you think, complete stranger in the electric chair, you getting a beating. But something happened and I actually fessed up and was just sent to Siberia. I mean, I cleaned more erasers that year. It was terrible. And to this day, and unfortunately all of the participants are long dead. At some point in later years, I thought, did they know the whole time? And they were just seeing what they would have to do to trap me. Were those guys really cops? Could have been two of my cousins, But, and there are stories like that throughout my youth. That the truth would have been, kaboom, done. Do what you got to do. Instead, this fabricating mechanism would begin. And I would just go on and on with these lies, hoping that you wouldn't not like me, that you wouldn't somehow hold me responsible for my own actions. When I was 17, I hadn't even started drinking yet. I wasn't a young drinker. I didn't steal my grandfather's wine or anything. It was always there. Once in a while at weddings in New Orleans, the aunts and uncles would make what they called pretty drinks for the children, which consisted of 7-Up, cherry juice, and just a little bourbon. And I would get fed these, and the kids would pass out in the corner, then the adults could, screw on the levee or whatever they were doing. But in 1963, the Beatles hit America, and it was this phenomenon. And everybody in my generation wanted to be English, wanted to be really skinny with bad skin and wear Beatle boots, So I had no identity. I had no idea who I was. So let me become someone who's interesting. And I made up a person who I became, an English person named Preston Macbeth. And I had all the accoutrement. I was a real Beatle fanatic, as we used to say, or maniac. I had the boots and the stovepipe pants and the stupid collarless jackets and the whole 9 yards. And I'd always been an Anglophile even prior to the Beatles, so I had a fairly decent English accent. And so I'd walk around the French Quarter, go into clubs or coffee shops at the time. I guess they were big then, again, for a little while, and pretend to be this fella from Liverpool who happened to be a distant cousin of George Harrison. And I'd meet these little teeny bopper girls with their bangs down to here, long hair, beautiful, and they believed me. So I was cool. And I would have entire relationships with people as Preston Macbeth. There's got to be a dozen women in the world who over the years have been watching their television and going, Jesus Christ, that guy looks like... I've been for 20 years, I've been waiting for a letter. Do you have any relatives in England? But it worked. It got me laid. And I don't think John L. at that time could have gotten laid by a mason, much less a woman. I meant that the occupation, not the religion. When I was 18 years old, I was in a rock and roll band, and we were playing a gig in Biloxi, Mississippi at a club. And we were driving down the road to the club, and there were two sailors hitchhiking on the side of the road. And we picked them up. And they both were getting ready to be shipped out to Nam. So we thought, we got to give these guys a party. We took them to the gig with us. We played. We were fairly popular, in a very small town kind of way at the time. And afterwards, they wanted to get some booze. Now, in Mississippi in those days, there were dry counties, etc., so you had to go to a state store, whatever they call them. And we didn't have a lot of money. The gig paid like $9 a piece or something. And so we walked in, and there was a little old lady behind the counter, and it was my job to create a diversion. And I asked her if she had any Band-Aids or something. I don't even know what, but it got her away from the counter. And as she's looking away for whatever I was asking, we just grabbed a few bottles of whatever we grabbed. Southern Comfort, schnapps, just all of that kind of really like snowball liquid kind of stuff to use. Because I didn't really know, My family drank wine and beer. And so we had all of this booze. And we drove around, and they all drank. And I don't know why it never occurred to me to drink before that, but it didn't. But that night, I thought, these guys are going away to do a job for us. How wonderful. Thank you very much. Here's to you. And took a few sips of everything. And then we got to some club, and everybody was going to go in and listen to country and western music, I think, in this club. And I decided to stay in the car. The moment that booze hit my lips, it was, hello, sailor. I went, wow, that was really warm and sweet. I like that. So my friends took a few sips, and they went into the club. I said, I'll be there in a minute. I sat in this car, Buick station wagon, and started just guzzling this stuff like it was water. And the feeling, this nuclear rod that went down to the middle of my chest, and my pecs got huge. And the world took on this look that was bright but fuzzy and warm and pulsating. And then I puked. But I was drunk. For the first time, I was drunk. Now, I had found the answer. I had found the answer for me because when that happened, being John was cool. It wasn't dorky. It wasn't, I reached 6 feet tall when I was 14 years old, and I weighed like 7 pounds. Sort of this pipe cleaner with this bushy black hair. But I became, Kirk Douglas or Cary Grant. I drank alcoholically from the instant that it went into my mouth. Never in my life, in my drinking life, did I drink at all like a human being. I have this, I say my wife, who is, I consider an earthling. But she considers alcohol a beverage. No. Barq's root beer is a beverage. Iced tea is a beverage, although it is better with bourbon in it. 6 months later, although I don't like mixing the two, it's part of my story, so I discovered marijuana. I was a disc jockey at a radio station. It was an automated station, which meant there was just big banks of tapes, and my job basically was to make sure the tapes didn't break, and it was a classical radio station. And someone had brought a matchbox full of marijuana. And I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I rolled this joint, you know, that this big white sausage. But I got it in. Around 1 o'clock in the morning, and there was a Beethoven symphony playing over the air. And the radio station was connected to a television station, and on the stage of the television studio, there was a huge grand piano that had been for some program that they were doing. And I smoked this big thing, and I thought, oh, it's kind of hard, kind of harsh, God bless you. I didn't feel anything, and I thought, what a waste of $7. That's how much it cost a matchbox full of really good shit. $7. Can't buy a condom for $7 today. So I thought, I'm thirsty. I started walking down the hall, and I leaned over the water fountain. These enormous black musical notes started coming out of the water fountain at me. And I looked over, and the piano, they were crawling out of the piano in rhythm with Beethoven. It was just fantastic. Wow. And so I became an aficionado over the next 5 years of alcohol and drugs. Actually, alcohol dropped off a little during those years. I was known as the pharmacist. I would get envelopes from people with something in it and a note. Take this, tell us what it does. I took very articulate notes. I wish I still had them. They were very scientific. It was like Jane Goodall watching monkeys, the way I would write these notes, you know? Well, first the back of your neck feels really hot, and then you see Jesus. And you know, for a long time it worked fantastically. My life was just a barrage of interesting, miraculous experiences. I seldomly look behind me to see what wreckage I was leaving behind. Broken people, broken jobs, lost cars, burning apartments. You know, that didn't matter. It was what I was creating in front of me that mattered. And it went on like that, you know? And something I also say to people when I'm in any kind of public arena, you know, we always see these, and rightly so, I guess, you know, obviously I should have said this long before this, but anything I say up here is completely my opinion and my experience and has nothing to do with what's in this book necessarily. This is the holy grail of this program. My experience is this. But I always tell people that, you know, I think we make a big mistake when we go, just say no. It'll kill you. Don't you be doing that marijuana. It'll kill you. You know, we should really tell them the truth. When you first do it, it's going to Great! Particularly if you're alcoholic. It is going to be the holy grail of revelation to you. But there's a price. Are you willing to pay the price? Because kids do this stuff and they look at the adults and say, well, they're full of shit. They just want it all to themselves, obviously. So I kept doing it. I learned two very good lessons very early on in my alcoholism, which I think are alcoholic commandments. If there's something really, really important going on in your life, get drunk and run away. And if you ignore something long enough, it might go away. Again, it's still the 60s, and I hopped around the country. I moved to Colorado because that's where the guy who was making my LSD lived. And I wanted to be close to the source. I wanted to be fresh. Get stale in the mail. And I ate acid for most of 67 and part of 68 on an almost daily basis. Good shit. Only the best. Liquid. On your oatmeal in the morning. Wheaties is not the breakfast of champions. I was going to get drafted. 1969. I didn't want to go to school. I'd been offered a scholarship to college, and I didn't want to go. So I had to do something. And I know we're close, but no offense, I didn't want to go to Canada. Just didn't know Canada. I had nothing against Canadians. I do now, but I didn't then. No. Best definition of a Canadian: an unarmed American with a health plan. So I joined the Navy. Seemed like a reasonable thing to do. Better than going to I was much too big for a rice paddy, I thought. It's my ride. I really gotta go. With pleasure. Hope I didn't piss them off. I wonder how many people I've sent to bars doing this. So again, here comes the alcoholic thinking. I didn't want to go in the military. I didn't want to do that. But I thought staying out would be harder than joining and then convincing them to throw me out. That way I would do my obligation, etc. Because it's like Houdini, you know, breaking out of a safe is not hard. Breaking into a safe is. So that's a whole story unto itself, which I won't get into, but I did just that, convinced them that they had made a mistake by asking me to join, and they sent me home after a year. I then thought, you know, you're really, really good at lying, and there's a place where they pay you to do that. It's called Hollywood. They actually pay you to be other people. I've been doing it for free all of my life. So I moved to Los Angeles to become an actor. I'd never done it before, on a stage, or in front of a camera. And so I did. In 1973, I moved to LA, got into a play by some means, I don't even know how it happened, but actually got a career out of it, got an agent from it, got very good reviews from it, and started working. Also, in that play, met a woman. The woman I was living with wasn't crazy about that, but it's the way it goes in Hollywood. Yes, I met a woman, and she and I were married the following year, in 1974. She had a daughter, her husband was deceased, and I took on this family. 2 years later, we had a son. And if I have a clock, if I had a graph as to when my alcoholism blossomed into complete mania, it was probably at the time my first son was born. And for a period of 5 years, between 1977 and 1982, when I got sober, I was lost. I was just gone. I sent my family to England because I thought it would be easier for my children to be in school in England. My wife is English, so they would have advantages. But, basically I wanted to be able to drink in peace. I moved on to a sailboat. And I lay down for 3 months. This is the heroin chapter of my using. And I would just snort heroin all day and urinate into an orange juice bottle and just became this lump of deceit and guilt. And I got a job where I could actually afford to get my family back, and I did, still drinking. And for the next 3 years, it was just, one after another of disastrous decisions. And luckily through this, I still managed to work somewhat, did a series in the late 70s, a military thing with Bob Conrad. And that was good because we got a lot of free booze and a lot of free dope from that. In 1980, I did a film called Stripes, and it was loaded completely through that. It's the only piece of work that you can actually watch if you ever see it, where I am blazingly gone. And it looks like I'm acting. I mean, it's pretty funny. But we were all just gone. In the summer of 1981, I realized something had to happen. I had gone away, which was my condition usually. I just would disappear for several days at a time. And I thought, I can't go home again after having done this. I have to concoct a story. Well, it shows you how sometimes your mind can trick you into sanity. I checked myself into a hospital in Los Angeles and called my wife and said, honey, I'm sorry I haven't called. They wouldn't let us call in the first few days. I'm in a hospital in the alcoholic ward. I think I have a problem. Well, I walked into this hospital and they put me in a room, and this book, the blue one, was on the bedside table of the room. And I read it. I just sat and read it. I'm a voracious reader. I've always been that. And closed it. And this being went on in my brain. You're an alcoholic. I'd never thought that before. I used to joke about it. I mean, there's an old line that Dylan Thomas, the Welsh poet, was asked by his father when he was 10 years old, what do you want to be when you grow up, Dylan? And his response was, Daddy, I want to be the drunkest man in the world. And I used it as a badge of courage. I had an enormous capacity, etc. Anyway, I'm an alcoholic. And being alcoholic, the next thought was, thank God, now I can drink in peace. I knew the problem. So for a few months, I went back and forth. I would not drink, I would get thirsty, I would smoke a little dope, because dope wasn't my problem, alcohol was. But marijuana makes you really thirsty. And so I flopped for about 4 or 5 months. And during that time, I was standing on a street corner, and I started whirling in my mind, the millions of questions that were incessant in your brain. That treadmill of anxiety and fear was just nonstop. And in the midst of that, a thought came if you don't stop this, you're going to lose your mind. And I think before, I really do believe that alcohol stopped me from flipping out. I'd have been completely psychotic if when I got to that point, I didn't anesthetize myself. So I called my wife, and she said, just come home. And again, I thought, good, I'm fine now. A few days later, I was sitting at a friend's house. I had a job. I'd gotten fired from the job, but they had to pay me anyway. And the firing was a casting thing. It had nothing to do with behavior. But I had this money that I didn't have to work for. So we bought a bunch of cocaine, I think, and Johnny Walker Black, and had it on the table, and we're snorting and shooting and snorting and shooting. I'm not a great light believer in hocus pocus. I'm not even a real big fan of gods. Again, as Woody Allen said, my favorite line, that everybody thinks I'm an atheist, but God knows I'm the loyal opposition. But what happened was, all of a sudden, I'm sitting at this table, drinking and snorting and talking about the business and how up it is, and when I'm ruling, it'll be. And all of a sudden, I'm on the other side of the room, looking at me at the table. And my thought was, who is that asshole? What a loser. And that quick, it was over, and there I was back at the table again. And I stopped in mid-sentence, in mid-lift, and looked at my friend across the table and said, I'll be right back. I got up from his table, walked out of the door, got into whatever piece of crap car I was driving at the time, went home, and that was it. It was over. February 6, 1982, it just, like a door had closed. Carl Jung talked about in the early 1900s that the only people he'd ever seen really get solved of this problem were people that have a fundamental shift in their perception. Fundamental shift in your perception. From one instant not being able to live without a drink, to the next instant not being able to live with one. Done. And I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. But I had that moment of clarity. And since I'm not a big religious person, it's still a wonderful mystery to me, whatever it was. I was available to whatever it was for that moment. The next morning I got up, called AA, said, I understand you guys have meetings where other alcoholics are. Where are those? I got sent to one in Hollywood at a church on Yucca Street and began a sober life. Very difficult for me at first, not to stay sober. I knew that was, I don't say it bombastically, but I knew that was over. Something deep inside of me knew that was over, and there was some fear involved with that. Because what do you do now? You took away my medicine. What do I do with this disease? Luckily, I was in the midst of some very old men who had been around a very long time. Clancy, Chuck C., Charlie Polachek, great old men. And I sat with them and I listened to them and I bought it wholeheartedly. The entire bailiwick of sobriety I bought with such a vengeance that for my first year I would actually walk into bars with the big book. Find the drunkenest asshole in the place, sit next to him, I think the word is zealot, being raised Catholic, it came natural to me. But luckily, my first sponsor, after he stopped laughing so much he was peeing his pants, when I told him the story, he said, "Leave the poor bastards alone." They're very happy. What are you doing going screwing up their drinking for them? But I took on the steps of the vengeance as well. You know, and I did them, and I did them, and I did them, and I did them. It took me 2 years to write my fourth step. I kept rewriting it. That's not good enough. That's not dramatic enough. Tear it up and start again. Many revisions. And the whole God thing, you know, I'm sure there are others in this room that may have one or two issues with God. First, when I walked into Yucca, and a friend took me to a meeting in Burbank, which is like RV sobriety Burbank, you know, where you'd walk in a room that hand you a cup of coffee and a Marlboro and tell you to sit down. And I walked in and the word God was just plastered everywhere. People with tattoos on their foreheads. Little metal fish on the back of their cars. And I thought, I'm screwed here. But this is one thing about going to a lot of meetings. I went to a meeting in the center of Hollywood, a room smaller than this, and the typical kind of my early idea of sobriety, you know, not quite a bare light bulb, but close. A lot of old, toothless men with cigarettes, long coats. Hey, yeah, I drank 100 bottles of beer a day. You want to stay sober the rest of your life? Get the hell out of here if you don't. And I'm standing in the back of the room against the wall with a Yankee cap pulled down over my head going, oh, hey, boy. Yeah, there was a price to pay, wasn't there? Got to listen to these bastards for the rest of my life. Yeah, I know, you drank with Bill W. You've been sober 116 years. Which page did you write? I mean, But the secretary got up and said, we have a speaker tonight. Tony, come up here and tell your story. Well, a man named Tony H. came up to the podium. An actor. One whom I'd admired my entire life. And he starts speaking. And as I'm sure it's happened to many of us, my life fell out of his mouth. And again, I'm just like every son of a bitch in this room. There's absolutely no difference between me and any one individual here. And that made me feel so at home. I had been looking for the other lepers all my life. Where do they keep them? The untouchables of the 20th century. They're in AA rooms all over the world. And the whole God thing, I'm fine with. I don't know what inspiration caused this, but the second step of this program saved my atheist ass, and I'm sure a lot of others. Because fortunately, they didn't put the word God in the second step. And even I, the egomaniacal mover and shaker that I am, as sick as I am, has to be able to conceive a power greater than myself. My first sponsor, Jewish, fat, atheist. One of the most spiritual men I've ever known. I said, this whole God thing, what are we going to do about this God thing? You know, I'd go to meetings in Tennessee and I'd go, you can use my higher power, Jesus Christ, until you find him. And I thought, that's wonderful. I'm really glad for you. But I don't think I can do that dance. So he said, go home He took a piece of paper and he wrote down, God as I understand God is ... He handed me the piece of paper. He said, go home, finish the sentence, and then come back and see me. So I went home for days. I sat at my desk. God as I understand God is. That's not right. That's not what I really feel. I finally got it. I finally understood my higher power that I created on the paper. Brilliant, compassionate, powerful, connected to every atom in the universe. I had created this Einstein-esque explanation of the universe. Went back to my sponsor and handed it to him. It's folded. Didn't even look at it. Just tore it up. What are you doing? He said, did you finish the sentence? I said, yeah. He said, good. Now go home and pray to it. And I did today. You know, Peter O'Toole once had a great line in a movie where he thought he was Jesus, thought he was God, and somebody asked him why. And he said, well, because every time I pray, I realize I'm talking to myself. I am so comfortable with anybody's understanding. The fact that we're in this room makes me know that we all have the perfect understanding of a higher power. Regardless of how many definitions we can label it with, we all have an understanding, and that's all that counts as far as I'm concerned. I would never try to convince you of anything. If you're sober today, and in any degree comfortable with your life, it means you get it. And I want to be with you. So if you're newer than I, oh, by the way, just to show you how things can work out. That woman I married in 1973, this July 4th, we'll be married 25 years. Without this program and her, I would be playing handball with John Belushi right now. You know, as sick as she is, we drunks have an amazing ability of attracting great women. She is smarter than I am, never gave up on me. Only once did she ever look at me and say to me, to my face, I understand that you want to die, and that's fine. Would you just please not do it in front of the children? And she threw me out. And for 10 months I was without her. And I am remarkably blessed to have her in my life today. You know, there's certain amends that are like a never-ending novel that you truly must, and I feel this way, make it for the rest of your life. Not out of guilt, not out of pressure, but just out of gratitude and thanks. Thanks for loving me when I had not a clue how to love myself. And this program does that same thing. So if you're newer than I, if you're real new, you know, I was unfortunately not in the room when chips were given out, so I don't know how many people with very little sobriety have in the room. 30 days or less. Is there people that, did you guys give chips for that? How many people in the room have a year or less sobriety? Well, That's amazing. But just to show you guys that it can work, how many people between 1 and 5 years? 5 and 10. 10 and 20. Over 20. To me, the real object lesson here also is take note. It gets less and less. So stay close, because it's really fucking cold out there. Keep coming back or die a miserable death. I love everyone in this room because you are part of me. I can't thank you enough for participating in my sobriety. Thanks for letting me share it. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with, and it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs, long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst and one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down. And then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right, but I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.